Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. I was about 17 and a half years old at the time. I'd been practically bedridden for a month after suffering 5 migraines in the previous month, on top of being unable to breathe properly due to acute bronchitis. I swear, I wasn't attempting suicide. I certainly wasn't. I just wanted to sleep and rest without pain. And I was reverting back inside myself with an I just give up attitude, not just because I wanted to die, but because I was caving into my body and had lost the will to fight or try to get better health-wise. As a result, I took too many pills. I'm pretty sure they had about 5 antidepressants, a bunch of Advil, a few sleeping pills, and a couple of tranquilizers. Within an hour or so, I began to feel my way out of it. While I was lying in bed, my friend held my hand and sat next to me. I was wearing a gold cross necklace, and she later told me that she saw the cross bounce a couple of inches off my chest just before I stopped breathing. Yes, I did stop breathing, though apparently not for long. She dialed 911 and an ambulance arrived, giving me oxygen and transporting me to the emergency room. This was an experience unlike any I'd ever had in my life. I found myself in a dark, churning black tunnel. The walls of the vertical-like tunnel were moving, transparent yet thick and black. Nothing was there. I didn't feel anything until I saw a tiny light coming toward me. The light grew brighter, but before it reached me, I heard a huge deep growl, like something out of a movie, but it wasn't a movie at all. I felt this very creepy thing entering my space, and just as it got closer, I was flying a light speed into the light. The light did not remain light, but rather became clear. It is difficult to explain. One thing I should explain that I can is that I never moved my mouth to speak, and neither did the entity. Jesus, I believe, moved his mouth to speak. Of course, he didn't have a mouth to begin with. My memory of this is so vivid that it's almost as if it's not a memory at all, but rather an ongoing knowledge deep within my soul. I was suddenly surrounded by the sweetest being I'd ever had the pleasure of meeting. I also had the distinct impression that he was not human at all, but assumed a human appearance to put me at ease for some reason. This feeling that the entity was concerned for my peace and comfort was very precise. He, for lack of a better term, communicated with me directly. The words were not audible, but rather felt and quite clear. I saw a flash of my life memories, feelings, and thoughts, as well as my position as a person, which was more like my spirit's position in the universe. As I stood there watching him, he remained silent, and I felt a variety of emotions. It was all done in what seemed like seconds, though everything seemed timeless, but it was full, complete, and thorough. I remember feeling so small, so tiny, like a child. I raised my eyes to him. He didn't have a face, but a glowing familiarity, as if I instantly recognized him and knew who he was, despite the fact that he wasn't a person. I knew I felt like he was a father, a god, a brother, a friend, a teacher, and most of all, an extremely superior entity who cared about me but was strict with me at the same time, as if I were a child caught running away with a cookie jar. That's just a metaphor. I wish I had better words to describe it. He never said these exact words, but rather sent these feelings to the core of my being. I do recall feeling very immature, which is embarrassing to admit, and as if I were 5 years old or something. I was very attached to him because of the incredible peace I felt, as well as this intense longing to simply be by his side, to never leave him, to beg him not to leave me. It was like the love you have for your parents multiplied by 1,000,000. I became aware that he was about to be separated from me and began arguing with him, but without words, only through my thoughts. "You're not ready yet," he said. "You must return." Then I just became the biggest baby, the worst spoiled brat on the planet. I flatly refused. I fought back. I fought his message and continued to beg him with my feelings to just let me stay with him because I didn't want to go back. I must emphasize that he exuded superiority, but not conceited or greedy superiority. It was the kind of mature superiority you'd notice in the most intelligent and wise person, multiplied by 1,000,000,000, and that's who stood before me. He was also so powerful and brilliant that it seemed he was omniscient, incredibly good, incredibly wise, and incredibly wonderful. He was a massive energy source. He seemed to me to be God. It was as if he was also the gatekeeper, refusing to let me stay and gently telling me I had to leave, without any anger or frustration. He was a model of endurance. He was a love pillar, but he was strict with me, refusing to let me stay, much like a father forcing his child to go to school on the first day despite their tantrums and crying. That's how it felt. He wasn't being unkind to me. He was simply strong and unyielding, but in a fatherly way. I also believe that because I was so immature and refused to obey, he was attempting to help me calm down because it felt like he held me in his symbolic arms, despite the fact that he lacked arms. After his reassurance, I stopped arguing and resigned in acceptance. It was incredible how quickly I felt like I was flying. I'm not joking. I literally felt myself fall back into my body and recall seeing my body on the bed just before I fell back into it. I was both exhilarated and delighted by my experience, and angry to be back in this constrained, limited, and difficult plane of existence. Since then, I've had heightened awareness of other people's emotions, or I've felt the impact of how others are feeling more profoundly. I'm also more irritated that I'm in a body and have been complaining about it ever since, whenever I don't feel well or have physical problems. I'm becoming increasingly frustrated with being in a body. I know now that my body is my prison, sad but true, and my spirit is separate from my body, but like a passenger or spirit on a raft, the body, on an ocean, this life called Earth. An ocean full of sharks and storms, no doubt. I don't claim to understand everything. I make no claim to know the answers. I have no idea how any of this works or what it means. I can say that I was a pretty wild teenager at the time, and I wasn't exactly my best in terms of how I treated some of the people in my life. Nonetheless, this beautiful being loved me and saw the good in me, saw past all of these things with his wisdom. I also know for a fact that a wonderful being out there said I'm not ready yet, which to me implies that I will be one day, and that gets me through this life pretty well.